How did you find yourself in Washington, D.C., Florence?
I found myself in Washington, D.C. because my father was a mining engineer, and he became the assistant director of the Bureau of Mines when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to school in Virginia for a bit, and then I finished my high school education in Washington in the public schools, and then I necessarily went to George Washington University because I wanted to study to be a diplomat. And at those years, only Georgetown, Princeton, Yale, and possibly Harvard had a course in international relations that led to the diplomatic service. And of course, they were all male, as was the diplomatic service.
Right.
And I ended up taking the State Department exams, which I failed.
Then from there, what was your next job or your next employment opportunity?
Since I wasn't going to be a diplomat, I got a job in a law office in Washington, and its practice was largely cases referred by law firms in other cities that had to do with the government. And many of them were with the State Department and citizenship cases. And that's how it happened that I can't think who she was. There was a Swedish girl who was working for my boss's family, who had been born in the United States of Swedish parents. They had returned to Sweden when she was very young, 9 or 10. And at the age of 21, she decided that she wanted to remain a United States citizen since she was a natural-born one, or native-born it is. And so she went before the consulate in Stockholm and affiliated herself with the citizenship of the country where she was born, and which gave her dual citizenship. And when she returned to the United States and earned her living being a maid in various places. And suddenly the State Department decided that they were tired of dual citizenship. It was a nuisance, and they were going to, I guess, legalize it out of existence. So they were going to deport her, saying that she was indeed not a citizen of the United States and she was not entitled to stay. And so my boss took her on as a pro bono case, and the case was brought before the Supreme Court, and he argued this case in the Supreme Court when, at the time that Robert Jackson was the Solicitor General of the United States, and Robert Jackson lost.
Did you go to the case?
I did. I had the privilege of working on the brief that Henry Butler, who was the attorney, used, and I heard the trial, yes.
What was your impression of the arguments, both sides?
One of the things that I remember and hope is still true is the civility of the whole procedure. The arguments were legal and intellectual, and they were not vicious. They were not personalized.
Did Mr. Butler have any impression of Robert Jackson? Did he talk about his opposition?
Not that I remember.
Yeah.
Not that I remember. I think he was probably the one who told me that, on the whole, Mr. Jackson's heart was on our side.
Mm-hmm. Did your extensive career here at Chautauqua, did your paths ever cross with Jackson's at all?
My husband had met him, and at some point our paths did cross, and I met him, and we had some few minutes of conversation. And this was when he was Attorney General, I think.
Yeah. Wow, that's kind of a fun story. If you had to close your eyes and describe what Jackson looked like, since I never met him, could you?
I could now because I've seen his picture so recently. Otherwise, I think I might have been challenged to do that. It would have been a little difficult. I remember him, my picture of him in the Supreme Court was one of great dignity, I think. He argued his case with, I don't know, it's just sort of a gentle kind of logic. But it was completely focused on the legality of what the State Department was trying to do and its justification, which was his job.
This is terrific. We're going to stop now, but I'm going to come back and we're going to do an interview with you, serious interview of Florence Norton, the whole Chautauqua thing sometime.
Okay.
Has somebody done that? Has somebody from Chautauqua interviewed you?
I've been interviewed a number of times, briefly.
Maybe. This is great.